If I had to use one word to define the 2013 Daytona 675, that word would be refined. Now, I say that because when you get on that bike, it feels like Triumph has done so much to make sure that every little bit of it is as good as it possibly could be. Out of the box, nonetheless. It really feels like they work the engine to play to those ideas, those things that people naturally say, I wish I had more of, or I want less of that. It truly is a very versatile and amazing bike. It's strong and powerful, but by no means is it perfect. And by when I mean what I mean by that is that this bike isn't something that I would recommend you go out and sell your current motorcycle for. If you try it and you're like, I really like this, you can't really go wrong with it, but there's no need. For example, the Kawasaki 636 is pretty dang good as well. It may actually be better in some people's minds than the Daytona. For me, I love the bike and I'm going to keep it anyway. But there is plenty of good competition out there for this bike to run against. And this bike is probably one of the better ones you can buy. But it's not perfect. Now, if you're someone who's been eyeing the Daytona for a really long time, and I know it doesn't have that Undertale exhaust that a lot of people really loved about the original, I myself was as well, but it's just as good, if not better. Even without it, this bike is so light and flickable, it's not even funny. Everything is there. It may not have some things that you absolutely love in terms of aesthetics, but it really is beautiful. And this is actually not a bad time to jump into the whole new line of Daytona. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to be early adopters because then you have to deal with all the problems of early adopting. However, it still is an amazing bike, and it may be opportune for you to jump in now rather than maybe later. So, to wrap this all up, or try to put a nice little bow on top of it, with an MSRP of 11,600, the regular standard Daytona 675 does come with ABS standard and a slipper clutch. Those two for the US, I should say. So if you're buying it here in the United States, your basic model Daytona should come with those items regardless. They're really nice additions. They really are. Now, this bike, compared to a lot of others, you really can't get much more for your buck. You get so much more bang for your buck. You're getting a bike that people would not recognize off the top of their freaking heads. You get a unique sound that does take some getting used to, but it really is nice. It really is something that you just should not have to pass on if you get the opportunity to ride it or own it. It is truly an amazing bike, and I can only imagine how much better it is at the track. But I'm not a track rider. I'm a daily commuter. And as a daily commuter, this bike does everything I needed it to and then some. It's like the nice hybrid between my F4i and my R6. It's not too aggressive, but it's just aggressive enough to a point where I feel like I'm riding something that was built for the track. Take it as you will. And another thing that I forgot to mention earlier in the other part is that somewhere around the 1,200 mark, I started getting a clicking sound from my engine, almost sounding like, the cam tensioner or something like that, like clicking, and it really bothered me. It was relatively loud. Not as loud as some people's, but it was there. It was evident. The funny thing about it is, as I rode it more, the problem kind of went away. It seems like the bike itself, when put in certain conditions in terms of the weather and atmosphere, it behaves a different way. So that clicking, it's been relatively cooler slash relatively warm. It's in the middle, like 80 degrees, like 90, somewhere around there. But it's been humid, and when it's humid, it gets a little weird and wonky. But when it normalizes and it's not so bad, the bike runs perfectly. And since then, I have not heard any of that clicking from my engine. Maybe I've gotten used to it, but I haven't heard it standing next to it with my helmet off, riding it, none of the above. So the bike is very interesting, but I digress from that point. The bike in and of itself is something great. It really is. And as a commuter, it's pretty good. It costs, depending on how you can haggle and what you get with it, you can cost a bit, but it's pretty high on the list in terms of what you're getting for what you're paying. because the bike is amazing. The reviews don't lie. The bike really is that electrifying. You'll get off it with a smile on your face every time. But that's something that these things, those little topics and points, are something that you should probably think about before you buy it. What's the closest Triumph dealership to my location? Can I maintenance it myself? Can I do a lot of these things? I mean, if you were to remove your exhaust, it's not as simple as something like an R6 or an F4i where it's kind of just a little pipe. That butterfly valve in and of itself still needs to be tuned, or all the stuff for the engine still needs to be tuned. Now the ECU will do a lot of it itself, however, I mean, there's still the mechanical part of putting it all together. It's not as simple. It's not hard, but it's not as simple. So you might want to consider taking it into a dealership to get those parts installed. I don't know, but something you should think about when you're purchasing it. That being said, I feel like I ran over a little bit more. I'm going to go riding because the bike is totally worth it. Also, another thing, forgot to mention, if you're going to buy this bike, don't hesitate to join the Triumph forum. I learned a lot of information from Triumph675.net. I learned a whole bunch about what the bike should be like, how much I should really pay for it, things like that. They're great help there, and it's a good resource for you to get some more information. Also, just going to say it right here, insurance. Do get a quote for insurance when you're buying this. You don't want to be like me. Trust me, you don't want to know how much I was paying for insurance. Still kind of am. But it's not cheap to own. It's not cheap to own the new and shiny. So, cautionary tale. You guys enjoy. Have a great weekend or day or whatever point in time you're watching this. And hope to see you out there riding.